Hello you lovely cubs, it's the Dragon Lord here, back again with another video. Now, today we are doing What If Kokushibo was Tanjiro's father part 6. I said that I would do this part on stream last Saturday, Sunday, I don't really remember when, but I said I'd do that then, I think Saturday. Anyway, there's not much to say. Like and subscribe if you're new around here, and if you do like this what if, then just, join the Discord, tell me about it, comment down below, that also works. And well, with that out of the way, let's get into it.
I'm up now, 20,000 on a bus down, I'm on my way, I'm going up now, and I ain't never gonna touchdown.
Three months was the initial time given by Ubuyashiki, yet when Tanjiro heard about the training, he proposed his own idea. The first 3 months would become training sessions between the Hashiras, their Tsugoku, and Tanjiro's sisters and his friends. This was not to only get Tanjiro used to his new body, but it also was a method for them to get stronger and be able to team up in missions if needed. In these 3 months, everybody's strength had already greatly multiplied. Tanjiro learned everyone's breathing techniques, or at least he did so by observing, and he did this because of the offer he made with Ubuyashiki. However, he didn't sit still. He'd have sparring sessions with the Hashira, and he'd even learn some of their special techniques. Overall, each Hashira definitely became a lot stronger with Tanjiro there, as they had a goal set in mind. The 3 months breezed by, and everybody that partook in the training was at least previous Hashira level strength now, but most of the Hashira even awakened their Demon Slayer mark, and in conjunction the Crimson Red Blade. Tanjiro's proposal, however, was simple. The entire Demon Slayer Corps would start a training session that would last another 3 months, led by Tanjiro, who would not only be learning from everybody present, but also helping them attain new heights, using what his father taught him and what he himself learned throughout his life. Before this training session was supposed to start, Tanjiro's sword finally got made. It took an additional 2 months for Haganezuka to make his sword, as he wanted it to be utmost perfection. When he came to reveal the blade, all the Hashiras attended. After all, the strongest amongst their rank was about to receive a special blade, something made from a very rare ore found on Mount Yoko, even rarer than the Nichiren ore. Haganezuka would start his explanation. He'd start saying things about how he tried making a sword out of the metal alone, but that it was way too brittle and would break too easily. So he explained that the extra 2 months were used to make Tanjiro's old sword, reforge it, and use it in conjunction with the new sword, which led to Tanjiro's sword being rebirthed in a sense. He'd revealed the blade, and a lot had changed. The scabbard that the blade was in had a golden black pattern spiraling down along the length of the scabbard. The guard and hilt had also changed, matching the scabbard, yet when Tanjiro pulled out the blade and gripped it, it had turned into its pattern from before, yet 2 things were clearly different. The moons on the blade had turned golden, and the actual color of the blade had turned crimson red. The balance of the sword was also near perfect, Tanjiro remarked, and not only that, it was nice and sharp. Tanjiro slashed it a few times with it and thanked Haganezuka. He could tell that this blade was special. Haganezuka, however, bowed before Tanjiro, saying that if ever broke, he'd make it even stronger. Shortly after the statement, he'd left. Tanjiro and the Hashira's training started now. He'd mostly trained the Hashiras and his friends and family, but some of the promising Demon Slayers caught his eyes and were pulled into the training sessions. All the rest were basically trained by the Hashira. After the first week of receiving Tanjiro's training, he'd spar with each Hashira. Most of them had already developed from the training they received. Even Shinobu, who couldn't wield a real sword because of her lacking strength, was now more than capable to do so. Her blade had ended up being upgraded a bit so she could alternate between poison and decapitating. She had also ended up getting her Demon Slayer mark in this time, which was one of the main reasons she could do this. Tanjiro saw growth in each Hashira, and told them their weaknesses and strengths, what to work on and what to do. He made them go through training for 1 week just so he could test them at the end of the week. He had told them that if they didn't get strong enough to satisfy him in the 2+ months that they were given, then he said they shouldn't bother trying to aim higher. Rengoku and Tengen were the only two that were told their major weaknesses, as they were the most lacking out of the Hashira in Tanjiro's opinion. He had told Rengoku that it took him way too long for him to use his forms, as if he was bound by the forms instead of letting them come to the battle naturally. He was also told that he took too long using them, that he shouldn't restrict the destructive power but precision he was given. Tengen, however, took too long to analyze his enemies. His musical score ability was really impressive, is what Tanjiro had deduced, yet he told him that he took way too long on preparing it, showing off that even him who had good hearing, yet still worse than Tengen, could also use the ability, and he was showing it off as if he had mastered it years ago. Tengen took note of this, of course, and Rengoku as well. The rest of the 3 months under Tanjiro went by rather quickly. He'd help them with their weak points, they'd help the Demon Slayers under them, and so on. Everybody grew a lot out of these last 6 months. However, Tanjiro's final test came. Luckily, everybody passed without a single issue. Every Slayer who wasn't already Kinoue rank, but had the potential to be Kinoue, got promoted to Kinoue. This was to ensure that the Slayers could live comfortably whilst also being called if an emergency happened. "Good work, everybody," Tanjiro would say, putting a cup into the air as they wanted to celebrate the success of the training. All the Hashira followed. They had become like a family. Even Hashira like Giyu or Obanai, who were usually quite shy, had really warmed up to the whole group. Nezuko, Inosuke, and Zenitsu were also there, and they partied the night away. However, Tanjiro had left early as he had a meeting with Ubuyashiki. He'd meet up with the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, whose condition had greatly worsened. He had already lost so much blood and his face was almost completely covered by the curse. They'd talk and talk and talk until silence befell them. Tanjiro had sort of become great friends with Ubuyashiki, and they loved sharing stories. Tanjiro spoke a lot about his father, and Ubuyashiki talked a lot about the Demon Slayer Corps and its history. However, when their conversations came to an end, the only real noise you could hear was the heavy breathing of Ubuyashiki, who was struggling to sit upright. Tanjiro spoke. "I think I might be able to cure you," he said as he stood up. "That's quite all right. I was destined to die. However, you are destined to end Muzan's life, not save mine," Ubuyashiki would softly say as he struggled some more. "Why not do both?" Tanjiro said as his eye had changed color again, back to the red it was 10 months ago, when he fought those lower moons and Akaza. Tanjiro could see this aura or energy flowing in everybody every time he activated this eye. At first he didn't understand it, but after thinking about it, he realized it was linked to his blood demon art. He knew he'd have one, but how to use it was still a mystery to him. He tried making the foreign energy in Ubuyashiki's body leave. However, he couldn't get it to do that, so he absorbed it instead. Ubuyashiki, whose curse mark completely disappeared, was astonished. He no longer struggled to breathe, and it was like a heavy weight had been lifted off of his shoulder. However, one of Tanjiro's fingers decayed, but it regenerated again really quickly. That vile energy was definitely linked to Muzan, was Tanjiro's thought. However, they just enjoyed the moment. They both joined the Hashira after enjoying some sake together, and they celebrated. Not only did they celebrate their growth, but their master's recovery as well. 2 more months would pass by rapidly. In fact, these 2 months were quite absurd. Tanjiro and Shinobu had become a couple. It was quite a surprise to most of the Demon Slayer Corps, but they fit well together. And Tanjiro, who didn't have any missions at the moment, was staying at Shinobu's mansion. He heard some screams though and decided to check it out, finding Tengen, who was trying to take away Aoi and some of the attendant girls. "What do you think you're doing?" Tanjiro would say with a dominating presence, which scared Tengen a bit. After all, he did train with Tanjiro for over half a year. He knew how terrifying this man could be. He put the girls down as he started talking about the reason he needed them. That explains a lot, but these girls won't be much use in battle, so how about you take us instead? Tanjiro would say with a confident look. In that moment, Nezuko, Inosuke, and Zenitsu would show up returning from their missions. Tengen thought about it, and seeing how Tanjiro was a really handsome guy, they could probably pass him off as a handsome girl as well. Shinobu, who was also nearby, came outside. After hearing the situation from Aoi, she proposed joining their mission as well. But Tanjiro rejected her proposal even before Tengen could, saying how 2 Hashira should already be way more than enough. Shinobu was a bit let down, but Tanjiro just patted her head. "We're off alright, see you later," he'd say as they set out shortly after. They'd follow Tengen with relative ease. After all of them were at least at the previous Hashira's levels. Zenitsu, who was also attended the training, was a lot more confident about himself now, and he could easily keep up with the speed that Tanjiro was putting out if he gave it his all. That's the level he had gotten to. Nezuko had almost complete control over her blood art, and together with her water breathing, she'd easily be able to match Tanjiro or any of the Hashira in power. Inosuke, however, he simply became stronger. Raw power was what he wanted. Precision and the other training things were not that necessary for him, and they came secondary. They'd arrive at the entertainment district after only a day. That night, Nezuko would help everyone with their makeup, making Tanjiro and Inosuke look like they were models. Not only that, but she'd even be able to make Zenitsu look good. She herself hardly had to put on makeup. After all, she was already a beautiful young lady. Tengen would go out together with them, and he'd sell them off to different houses. Most of the houses were glad to take them in. 2 days quickly passed whilst everyone did their jobs. Tanjiro would work diligently cleaning the place, whilst Zenitsu had found one of the demons. She tried to strike him, but he easily dodged. This scared the demon, who was hiding as an Oiron. Nezuko was really popular with her house as she did the makeup for the other girls. However, Inosuke wasn't as popular as he made quite a ruckus. After finding all the information they needed about the demons, they all grouped up and explained everything. That night would be the night they struck. Tanjiro would meet up with the head of his house. She obviously knew that he was a boy, but after seeing his face without makeup, she blushed a bit. Tanjiro, whose beauty had only increased after his transformation, had become even more handsome than Tengen Uzui. He'd tell her his goodbyes, and give her the money for his food and lodging. However, before leaving, he'd smell something. It was faint, but it was definitely there. He left the room and ran away. However, this was just a trick. After 2 minutes, he rushed back to the room, finding a female demon trying to take Koinatsu, the Oiron and the head of his house. In a millisecond, he'd save her and kick the demon through the wall. The demon, who revealed herself as Daki, was stunned by Tanjiro's beauty as well, saying how he was equal to her master at least. She composed herself, however, and went in for the attack, though Tanjiro easily deflected all her strikes and sent her flying. "You should run," he'd say to Koinatsu, who followed his advice and ran. Tanjiro ran after Daki, who was struggling to get up. "Before I end you, I'd like for you to tell me where my father is being held," Tanjiro would say, holding his blade to her neck. "Why should I tell you where that traitor is being held?" she'd say, hitting the ground and making a massive dust cloud. She knew she couldn't fight Tanjiro, who had almost beat a boosted Akaza. Meanwhile, Tengen, Inosuke, and Zenitsu had found their lair. They easily freed all the girls that were captured. The demon sentient band that was there knew they couldn't do anything, so they went back to Daki, revealing her true form, as she had white hair. All the demon slayers rushed out, however, as she was now surrounded. She looked around, trying to find the weakest of them all and to try and escape. She saw Zenitsu and assumed he'd be the weakest as she rushed at him. Before she had a chance to register what happened, though, she'd be decapitated by Zenitsu. She started wailing and crying, which confused the group of slayers. Why wasn't she disintegrating after all? However, she would scream out, "Brother!" In that instant, another demon showed up as if it was attached to her. He'd send out slash attacks towards the slayers. Tanjiro intercepted, though. He took a breath. Moon breathing, 13th form, moonlit lake reflection. He'd say as he made a calm movement which grabbed all the blades in a second, and he'd crash them into the ground. No way, he stopped that attack? Gyutaro the demon who had appeared would say. He quickly helped his sister regenerate. They both realized that they stood no chance. So they grabbed a bottle of red liquid. Before the slayers could stop them, they had already drunk it. This had made the demon stronger by a lot. Gyutaro was easily able to match Upper Moon 4 now, and Daki could even match Upper Moon 5. Tanjiro, Tengen would say, getting his attention. Let us take care of this. After all, we have to see our own limits, right? Tengen would say with a distinguished look of confidence. Alright, you and Nezuko take the brother, and Inosuke and Zenitsu take the girl, Tanjiro would say, patting his sister on the head, as he walked back to observe. The fight started, and really quickly it turned into a one-sided battle. Daki and Gyutaro were getting destroyed. Although Zenitsu couldn't cut Daki's neck right away, it didn't matter, as he just pinned her down, and Inosuke would easily cut through, using his blades like a saw. She got decapitated first in under 4 minutes, whilst Gyutaro was only able to defend himself. Tengen's speed and precision had increased a lot, and every time Gyutaro sent out an attack, Tengen instantly deflected or stopped the attack as if he knew what was going to happen. This was the fruit of their training. Tengen's musical score had evolved to the next level, a level where he could hear the opponent's muscles move and predict their next action. A version of Transparent World almost solely using hearing as its basis. Nezuko was no joke either. One of her attacks was devastating and hurt Gyutaro even if he blocked, simply because of her flames getting on his skin and burning him. It didn't take long for him to get decapitated either, as he only lasted 6 minutes. So, you're gonna tell me where my father is? Tanjiro would say, picking up Daki's head. She just cried silently as she started blaming them and her brother for her loss. He'd simply cover her mouth as he went over to Gyutaro and asked the same question. "Let go of my sister!" he'd say, trying to bite Tanjiro. Daki saw this and started crying louder. Tanjiro let go of her and put their heads next to each other. He started walking away, however, Gyutaro called out to him. "Oi! Your father, he's in the Infinity Castle," Gyutaro would say, looking at Tanjiro with an angered look. "That wasn't so hard, was it now?" Tanjiro would say, patting them both. Both siblings simply started shouting at him to shut up. Tanjiro still felt bad for them. He felt something strange about these two. His nails would change as he entered another trance, like that time that he was in a dream. His nails would enter the sibling's skin. What was happening? Tanjiro thought to himself. He could feel his own blood leaving his body. It wasn't a lot, but still he could feel it. The siblings erupted into piles of flesh before shrinking into a small girl with white hair and a boy just a bit taller than her, who was very skinny. Tanjiro woke up from his trance and backed off. What was happening? The demons they had just fought just a second ago had turned into almost childlike versions of themselves. Tanjiro would look over, but the bodies of Daki and Gyutaro were still disappearing. The brother started crying as he called out to his sister, "Ume!" as he hugged her tightly. "Tanjiro, what happened?" Zenitsu would be confused. He didn't hear the sound of a demon, and he only softly heard the sound of humans make. Gyutaro and Daki came up to Tanjiro and hugged him. "What happened?" he'd asked, confused. They didn't smell like that man anymore, and they resembled humans. In fact, they almost had like a soft kind of smell of himself. "Tanjiro, you are like him. You became a progenitor," Gyutaro would say. "I don't feel like a demon anymore, yet I know that I still have my powers," Gyutaro would say, extending his hand and summoning a scythe from it. "So, we should just decapitate you again? Is that what you're saying? Tengen would say, extending his blade to Gyutaro's neck. Yet Tanjiro waved him off. Gyutaro would speak up again. I'm sure we can't atone for the sins we committed as demons, but that's why I'd like to ask you to let us join you in fighting Giputsuji Muzan. I don't understand why, but it's as if I can think clearly now, that I'm no longer linked to that man. I don't want Ume to be hurt anymore, too. Please, let us help. Gyutaro got down on one of his knees, as he started speaking again. I, Gyutaro, swear my loyalty to you, Tanjiro Tsujikuni. I'm sure I'll be of help to you finding where your father is, too. I'm confused by what is going on, but I can tell something within you both has changed, like how my father changed in the past. You'll have to go through some interrogations of the Demon Slayer Corps, but I'll take you both as my subordinates after that, Tanjiro would say as he took out his blade. Now before we continue talking, I'll have to fight you, won't I? Tanjiro would look up at a building, and there stood Akaza. Tanjiro's gaze quickly turned to hate, and so did Nezuko's. After all, Akaza was wearing the kimono that their father would wear, half of Tanjiro's and the other half being his own, Kokushibo's. I don't know what you did to those two, but Master seems quite mad, so I'll be taking everybody's life here. After all, feasting on your father for so long, I've risen to become Upper Moon too, he'd say with a smirk as he rushed at Tanjiro with great speed. Tanjiro entered into his unnamed form again, and blocked Akaza. You know, since the last time we fought, many things happened. I started feeling a strange energy, and it's confounding. I think it might be my demon blood art, but it seems like I can do almost anything. Tanjiro's blade started changing again like it did last time. His aura changed as he resembled a demon more than a human. Both his eyes turned bloodshot red. Akaza, however, couldn't feel his bloodlust. Tanjiro had reached the stage of selflessness that he wanted so bad. Akaza would rush at Tanjiro, however, the boy slashed off his hands before he could even react. The speed Tanjiro was showcasing was greater than even Muzan's. His precision was insanely good, and the fear Akaza was feeling at this moment even surpassed that which he had for his master. After all, he had taunted this man who cared about his father so much that there was no way he could get an easy death. Tanjiro ran towards Akaza, and even now his cells were scared. Muzan's cells were terrified. This man didn't remind them of Yoruichi. He looked like a more demonic version of him. Akaza yelled out, and doors opened in an instant as he got grabbed by a massive tentacle arm and dragged out of there. Tanjiro would see this, and right before the doors closed he took a breath. Moon breathing, 5th into 14th form. Calamitous catastrophe moon spirit, he'd say as he unleashed 3 to 6 slashes, 4 of which entered the door, the other 2 clashed against the door and dispersed. Tanjiro had realized that the moon breathing is like a blood demon art. He had realized this many months ago. However, if he focused hard enough, he could combine multiple forms into each other. The 2 that hit the door and dispersed only dispersed because Tanjiro wanted them to disperse. The ones that reached inside, however, blew up into many smaller slashes, which devastated the Infinite Castle a good bit, even hurting some of the demons there, including Muzan, who was furious. Tanjiro after this changed back to his normal self and fell to his knees. He was a bit exhausted from trying all these new things at once, but he had to send a message right, and he succeeded. The Slayers there had to start returning to the Demon Slayer Corps. After all, they had found out that Tanjiro could potentially cure demons. This was a huge discovery. The sun slowly came up, but Ume and Gyutaro were unharmed. The Kakushi came in and started their cleaning, whilst the others all set out to the Demon Slayer Corps. But what happened there, we'll have to wait until the next part. Well guys, that's the end of the part. It's a bit of a longer one. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one as well, but Tanjiro is special in this one, isn't he? But yeah. My name's the Dragon Lord. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Like goal for this video will be 100 likes. I know you guys can probably crush that pretty fast, so there you go. yeah, comment down below what you thought of it. Also, comment down below a name for Tanjiro's new form, because I haven't given that a name. I kind of wanted you guys to name that. In the movie, I will just give it the name right away, but there you go. Anyway, with that out of the way, I'll see you lovely cubs in the next video. I wish you all a good day. My name's the Dragon Lord, and I am signing out.